Good evening, St. Columbus. I'm Tara Woodward. I was an intern with you a couple of years ago, and I'm back again to extend my internship. Tonight we're starting a new series called Walk with God, which is just some practical ways to think about how we see walking as sort of a metaphor throughout Scripture, as well as how walking can be a way that we actually engage using our bodies in our spiritual life. So my opening question for you is, when was the last time you went on a walk? I'm here at the Westcliff Stairs, which has some gorgeous views of Johannesburg, and is a pretty common place for runners and walkers to go up the very steep steps all the way up to the top. And as I was sort of thinking about this series, I was remembering back to how I processed COVID last March, and one of the ways I did that was just by walking. Part of this was because I wasn't really sure how to process what was happening around me on the news, and the other part was because I just needed to get off my parents' ranch and to walk somewhere, anywhere. And sometimes I would walk for miles, sometimes up to 24 Ks, just to sort of walk my way towards understanding what was happening around me. And it sounds like from certain seasons of the lockdowns here in South Africa that you also had like set hours that you could leave the confines of your home and go on a walk. Maybe you went around your neighborhood, or maybe you would see your neighbors as they would walk their dogs towards some sort of a semblance of normal. And these kind of wandering walks, or walking our way towards something as a way to understanding, is a similar way that two of Jesus' disciples took on the way to Emmaus in Luke 24. It's just hours on that first morning of the first day, on what has been the worst weekend, where all of the disciples' hopes and futures have been resting on following this man named Jesus. And now, like the day after a disaster, they're in the aftermath of what would seem to be the end of everything. Just hours after those long, dark hours, the women have discovered that Jesus is no longer in the tomb, but to the disciples, it's just not quite clear yet what in the world has happened. So listen to this passage from Luke 24 as these two disciples decide to go on a walk and talk about what has just happened. Now that same day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 11 kilometers from Jerusalem. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened. And as they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them. But they were kept from recognizing him. He asked them, "What are you discussing together as you walk along?" They stood still, their faces downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, said, "Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who doesn't know the things that have happened here in these days?" "What things?" Jesus asked. "About Jesus of Nazareth," they replied. "He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem the people of Israel. And what is more, it is the third day since all this took place. In addition, some of our women amazed us. They went to the tomb early this morning, but didn't find his body. They came and told us that they had seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. Then some of our companions went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see Jesus." He said to them, "How foolish you are, and how slow to believe all of these things that the prophets had spoken. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter into glory?" And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. As they approached the village to which they were going, Jesus continued on as he was going farther, but they urged him strongly, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening, and the day is almost over." So he went in to stay with them. This story of the disciples meeting Jesus on the way to Emmaus offers us not just a metaphor for our life and journey with God, but it's also rich for our practical and personal lives. Like the disciples in our own journey as his disciples, we encounter the risen Christ in unexpected, everyday moments, in our waking, walking, and sleeping and eating. We encounter him alone, like Mary Magdalene on her way to the tomb. We encounter him with others, like these two disciples, walking their way towards understanding what has just happened and why it matters for their life now. It's for these reasons that walking offers us a rich, practical, and personal practice for our spiritual lives with God. Over the next 3 weeks, we'll be exploring not just a metaphysical sense of walking with God, but also how walking through familiar paths like your neighborhood, or even new or neglected paths, offers us new insights into our life with God. As you walk this week by yourself or with friends, I invite you to reflect on the disciples' conversation with Jesus in Luke 24. Be present to your body. Notice where your feet wander and what you're feeling. Maybe it will be grief like the disciples. Maybe it will be delight that you have woken up and it is a new day and the jacarandas are just about to bloom. Wherever you wander, may you rest in the sense that Jesus walks with you, accompanying you in your journey with him. Thanks. In closing, one of the walks that I've enjoyed is this path of jacarandas near the West Cliff Stairs. And I've been told that they're not quite in bloom yet, but they will bloom purple, and it will be just a beautiful reminder of spring and a new beginning. And so I would encourage you to walk maybe this road or some other path along your house with a friend or by yourself, just as a reflective space, thinking about that Luke 24 passage. And I'd like to offer this poem as a prayer to close our journey. It's called Morning Reflections by the Nigerian poet Anumo Okoro. What is this unfolding, this slow-going unraveling of gift, held open in hands, to the wonder and enchantment of it all? What is this growing, this rare showing, like blossoming of purple-spotted forests by roadside, grown weary with winter months? Seasons affected, routinely disordered, by playful disturbance of divine glee, weaving through limbs with sharpened shards of mirrored light, cutting dark spaces, interlacing creation, commanding life with whimsical delight. What is this breaking, this hopeful remaking, shifting stones, addressing dry bones, dizzying me with blessings, intercepting my grieving and raising the dead all around me? Thanks, and we look forward to seeing you next week.